Now you're listening to Fantastic Formosa with John Abrams in Taipei. Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Fantastic Formosa. I am John Abrams, and we have an exciting guest for you this week. He has many skill sets, many portfolios in his record. His name is Ross Feingold. Welcome to the show, Ross.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Ross, you strike me as an extremely well-educated individual who knows the facts. And, you're a lawyer, you're a businessman, you've been around Asia for a very long time, but you didn't start out in Asia. Tell me where you came from originally.
I'm actually from the New York City suburbs, a place called Long Island.
Now, Long Island is quite famous.
For a number of things, iced tea, the drink, Long Island iced tea.
Now that's alcohol, right?
Yeah, so we won't dwell on that.
Okay.
It's also famous for its docks.
It's docks?
Yes.
Okay, ships, right? Come in? What kind of docks?
I said ducks, not docks.
Ducks?
Long Island duck, it's a delicacy.
Right. I thought you were talking about sailboats and coming into docks. You were talking about
it is an
ducks.
island, so it's surrounded by water, being an island.
Right. It's kind of a richy area, isn't it?
It's well known for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And the town where I grew up is also the town where the famous book, The Great Gatsby, took place by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
My God. All right. That was a great book, a great writer. Oh, my gosh. If you have a chance to read his books, please do. I think you'll find them quite interesting. There are movies, of course, but the books are quite sad.
Mm.
Yeah. And so you grew up in Long Island, and you went to university where?
I went to university about 4 hours away from where I grew up. It was in a rural part of Pennsylvania, and the university was called Bucknell. So even though it was only a few hours away from New York City, it was a very different world because it was all farm country around there.
So, I was talking about the Amish.
We had Amish where I went to university.
Right. Was that a bit of a shock? People, riding around in horses and buggies and, using manual labor and no electricity.
Well, you get used to it. You see them in the shopping center, in the parking lot. They just park their horse and buggy in the parking lot, and they go into the same stores. So they're different groups of Amish. Some of them engage more with society than others. So where I went to university, they were Amish, but they still come into town and shop in the big supermarkets.
Oh, my gosh. It seems like you go back 100 years a little bit with the Amish.
I'm about to hit my 100th birthday. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, this university or college, was it college or university?
University.
All right. Sounds very small.
It was small, only about 3,200 undergraduates, so 800 in each class. And I wouldn't say you get to know everyone, but you certainly recognize everyone who's in your same year. So, about 800 classmates graduated together. They had a East Asian Studies department, but when I began there, they weren't offering Mandarin. They were offering Japanese only. So in my freshman year, I took a semester of Japanese, and it got increasingly difficult because the grammar is so complex. So I still wanted to learn another language, and I decided I wanted to learn Mandarin because supposedly there was not a lot of grammar. That really appealed to me. And China was growing at the time.
Right,
so,
economically.
Yes, so I decided I would learn Mandarin. But since the school didn't offer Mandarin at the time, I had to study abroad during my junior year of university. So I spent the whole year away from Bucknell doing an intensive Mandarin program.
Where did you do your Mandarin program?
In Singapore. So
all right.
My first exposure to living in Asia and to studying Mandarin was when I was a university third-year student, and I spent that entire year in Singapore doing an intensive Mandarin program. And it was quite intensive because it was 4 hours a day from 8 to 12 every day doing Mandarin. And then there was a ton of homework.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's 1 hour of class time and 1 hour of homework, right? Normally.
Well, it was 4 hours of class time.
So you had 4 hours of homework, basically.
Basically, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1 hour out of the 4 was specifically for learning characters, and the other 3 hours was basically conversation. And I'll tell you another interesting thing about learning Mandarin and that specifically that program. Very quickly in the textbooks, the Hanyu pinyin disappeared. So when they were introducing new characters or new vocabulary, you had to look it up on your own. I mean, everyone had dictionaries, of course. But the textbooks really were designed to force you to learn the tones of the new character. So if they're teaching you a new character, you'd have the teacher in front of the room showing us how to pronounce and how to write a new character. But you really had to pick up from what the teacher said what the correct pronunciation is, or like I said, you could look it up in the dictionary. But the textbooks very quickly did not have the Hanyu pinyin, no Roman letters at all in the textbooks. Very, very quickly after maybe the first couple of months. So they really forced you to learn quickly.
So 1 year in Singapore.
Yeah.
Very expensive city.
Well, I was a student. I was living at the university.
Campus.
So yeah, I was living in the dormitory. So I didn't have to pay a lot for housing.
So your junior year abroad is a very common theme in universities in America, right?
That's right. Some people just do a semester. Some people do a full year. Some people do it for language learning. Some people do it for, they just take general courses, economics, history, et cetera, but I decided just to do full-time language. So I didn't take any other courses during that 1 year. I was just completely focused on studying Mandarin.
All right. So then you returned to university.
Returned to university for my 4th year, and totally by coincidence, when I came back, they were offering Mandarin. Yeah. So I was able to take a Mandarin class, which typical for university in the U.S., it was only a couple of hours a week, as opposed to doing 4 hours every day. But at least I was able to continue. And the other classmates, they were all Taiwanese Americans, so they were just getting an easy A.
Yeah, I know that. I know how they do it. And not just Taiwanese, but mainland Chinese as well.
I don't think we had any mainland Chinese back then. This is 1995. So when I finished university, I wanted to continue studying Mandarin, and that's when I came to Taiwan for the first time, right after I graduated university. And I did 2 hours a day of Mandarin class for a year here in Taipei.
What was your bachelor's degree exactly?
In political science and East Asian studies.
Wow. Okay. I did a political science degree with a minor in philosophy and religion. And
that's deep stuff there.
Yeah, philosophy wasn't popular, obviously. I spent a lot of times just looking up Greek words I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But so you finish your degree. How soon after you finish your degree do you go to Taiwan?
A couple of months later, so in August of 1996. That was the first time I came
the missile
here.
Crisis.
I just missed it. I missed the missiles by a few months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you came here and
also the previous time that I had lived in Asia when I was studying in Singapore, I hadn't traveled to Taiwan, so I didn't really know what to expect the first time I came here, given that my only reference was living in Singapore. So
different place.
It hit me right away.
Right.
And in fact, the very first day I was here, I went to register for Mandarin classes at the Mandarin Trading Center of Normal University, National Taiwan Normal University, or in Mandarin people call it Shida. So I went to register for Mandarin class, and the very first foreigner that I started chatting with there, he said to me, "Hey man, Taiwan's kind of like a bad habit. you know it's bad for you, but you keep coming back to it. And that's exactly what he sounded like. And actually, he didn't say bad habit. He referenced something a little stronger than a bad habit.
But it's, people come here and they never leave sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's what the guy's point was, is that you keep coming back to Taiwan even though you know it's bad for you.
Well, I don't think, Japan's and Korea are just so expensive, and Singapore is expensive, and Taiwan is just the perfect fit, I think. It has that, I don't know. Hong Kong was being turned over. I
was actually in Hong Kong for the handover.
Right.
And when I told my father I'm going to Hong Kong for the handover, he said, that's a little like going to Austria for the Anschluss with Germany.
Okay. So you came here on did you get a fellowship? Did you get some sort of scholarship?
Nope, I didn't get any scholarship. I applied to the Taiwan office in Washington, D.C. for a scholarship, and I didn't get one, which I guess was a good start to my long-term relationship with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I did some part-time English teaching like a lot of young people do.
Very common.
And I also worked part-time in a law firm since my plan was to go back to the U.S. and study law.
So you stayed here for how long?
Just a year.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and then I went back to the U.S. for graduate school. But the truth is, because you keep coming back to Taiwan, during both my summer holidays from law school being 3 years, so there were 2 summer holidays. Both summer holidays I came back to Taiwan and worked in internships.
Well, you returned to the United States, and you probably a graduate. Is it a graduate degree in law? Is it JD?
JD, Juris Doctor.
Right. Where did you go to school?
American University in Washington, D.C.
Washington, D.C. How long did it take you to get through your program?
3 years.
Okay.
It's typically 3 years.
Was it a specific area of law?
No, in law, we don't really have like majors like you have in undergraduate university. The first year of courses is all the required courses. And it's just introduction to different areas of law like property law, criminal law, et cetera, et cetera. And then in the second year and the third year, you take electives in whatever area might interest you. So I did mostly things related to corporate finance.
Well, that seems to be where you finally ended up, right? Corporate law, corporate...
Yeah.
And after 3 years...
Came back to Taiwan again.
All right.
Because you keep coming back to it.
Yeah. It's a nice place, actually. It's got great things going for it. But you didn't consider a job in government or corporate law in New York or...
Well, I consider jobs in government, but we can't really talk about that.
Yeah, well, yeah, as many people, many people who have advanced degrees often look at that opportunity.
I was eager to get back to Taiwan.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I still love it. It is quite amazing how you can get on MRT and be in the mountains in 30 minutes.
Not back when I first came to Taiwan, though.
Well,
back
no,
in the late 90s.
MRT system was not operational.
It's not as expansive as it is now.
Now spider web. Almost.
Oh, it's terrific. One of the great things about Taipei is the MRT, and it's not only does it go everywhere, it's reasonably priced, and to be very fair to the hardworking people at the MRT, it is so clean inside the MRT stations.
Yes.
You could eat off the floor.
Yeah.
It's really spotless.
Reminds me of Singapore a bit. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
They keep it clean. Yes, and they, it's radically changed from the time I got here, of course.
Well, if you remember, if people see some of those photos or video or movies of Taipei in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was, of course, a lot more scooters on the road.
Oh, yeah. And there was very little control over the air pollution from vehicles, buses.
Don't you remember there was a publication that was based in Hong Kong called the Far Eastern Economic Review, which is no longer published.
I worked for them for a while.
Are you the one who wrote that Taipei, the basin of Taipei, is like a toilet?
No, that's terrible.
There was once an article.
I understand how that...
Because all the pollution was staying within the basin.
Right. Taipei's surrounded by mountains.
Yeah.
And what happens is pollution sort of settles
Correct.
over the city, and it turns everything yellow. And this was during a time period when there were a lot of factories around Taiwan Bay as well.
And the scooters and the air conditioning.
Yeah, and buses. Oh my God, the pollution out of the buses was terrible. And they were starting to crack down when I got here. They started pulling over cars, and they stick a tube, the police would measure how much you were producing in terms of pollution, and then they would fine you.
Did you ride a scooter yourself?
No, I've seen some accidents, and I decided that people did not wear helmets back then.
That's right.
And I thought, no, the last thing I want to do is be a foreigner in another country and end up in a hospital where they don't understand what I'm saying. So, but my gosh, they cleaned it up, and it's just beautiful. You can see the Yamingshan Mountain now from the train station. You could never see it back then. Oh my gosh, it was covered in fog.
Smog or
fog.
fog.
Yeah. But see, they had they had objectives, and they cleaned it up, and they made the place livable, more livable. And actually, the rents here are good, cheap compared to Singapore and Hong Kong, and that makes it a great place to live.
But actually, I did go live in Singapore and Hong Kong as well.
That's what I was wondering about. Yeah, so you came back to Taipei after you got out of law school?
Yeah, I stayed here for 4 years.
Just study Mandarin?
No, working. I was working.
Oh, you were working
at this point
as a lawyer?
Yes, as a lawyer.
Okay. What kind of law was it?
Well, mostly corporate law. Stuff related to financial industry predominantly.
Intellectual property?
Not
maybe?
much, no,
Okay.
just mostly stuff related to financial industry, banking, things like that.
So 4 years working as a lawyer in a foreign country, learning their laws now, right?
Correct.
And then what happened?
Then I got a job offer in Singapore, so I went to Singapore for a couple of years. So that was kind of like reverse culture shock because Singapore in many ways is very westernized. The supermarkets have a lot of foreign products, whereas in Taiwan, they have foreign products, but not as many.
Yeah, when I first got here, it was like impossible to find, my favorite cereal.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Captain Crunch or...
Yeah. I mean, of course, there's better selection now, but back then, 20, 30 years ago, the selection of foreign foods in the supermarket here wasn't nearly as good.
Yeah, but they had great markets in the mornings where you could buy fresh vegetables and different things.
Yeah, but if you really wanted Captain Crunch, you were stuck.
Yeah, I was. I think if I had stayed in America, I would probably be dead by now.
You'd have a lot more cavities, that's for sure.
Yeah, cavities plus diabetes. American food is full of starch. Oh my God! And when I go back to America and see my old high school buddies, they are obese and diabetics, and many have cancer of some sort. And I feel like, wow, I feel young and strong, and maybe I shouldn't go back to America.
So I didn't want to go back to America, so I stayed in Asia, and I worked in Singapore for a few years, and then Hong Kong for a few years. But back in
Singapore,
Taiwan.
how long were you there?
About 3 years.
All right. Now, if you have a good job, that's a great place to live. Money allows you to enjoy Singapore. If you don't have money, no.
Correct. But compared to Singapore and Hong Kong, Taiwan is a little bit slower paced.
Yes.
And people are quite nice.
Yes. Taiwan folks are just incredibly friendly. In Singapore, they seem to just go on their business.
We don't want to criticize on the air.
No.
But people.
No, I'm not criticizing Singapore.
People in Hong Kong they're very efficient. They're really good at getting stuff done.
Right. Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Certainly, in my experience, I was working in a very large company, globally very large, and the Hong Kong offices were large, and people are just very, very focused on execution. Getting the job done. And that's one of the great talents that people in Hong Kong have. Whereas in Singapore, people tend to be a little bit risk averse. So they want to make sure they've covered everything before they actually execute on a project.
Yeah, they do. I mean, that's definite. When I've been there on business in Singapore, they are very conscious about precision.
Yeah.
You know,
They don't want to do anything wrong.
right?
Don't want to break the law.
Yeah. But Taiwan is a little bit more, they want to challenge themselves and do things that are a little bit, risque maybe, and maybe produce a product that hasn't been seen before. And that's, the computer industry here is a good example of that. Oh
Yep.
my gosh. Silicon Valley of Asia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Singapore, how many years?
About 3 years.
3 years.
And then Hong Kong about 5 years.
So you got an offer from Hong Kong?
Yeah, so I went to work in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And to tell you the truth, I love all three places. I love living in Taipei. I love living in Singapore, and I love living in Hong Kong. Sometimes we meet those people here in Taiwan who haven't spent a lot of time in other locations in Asia, so they think that Taiwan is just the most fantastic place, like the name of the show, right?
Yes, yes.
That's why you call the show fantastic, foremost.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the truth is, I like to say there's good and bad in every place.
Every place you go.
Yeah, no place is paradise except paradise. But in the absence of actually being in paradise, if you're in Taipei or Hong Kong or Singapore, even Shanghai or Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Jakarta, all these big Asian cities have their great things. They have some negatives as well, but generally, I love cities. Having grown up just outside of New York City, so I'm a city person, and I think all these cities have their great things, and I love living in cities in this part of the world.
Yeah, they all offer a different personality. I first went to Hong Kong in 1990, and I just was in shock how, it had an energy. It just seemed like it was, on full auto. I mean, just full steam ahead. It didn't stop. It was a little bit like New York, kind of.
So were you inspired by that Jean-Claude Van Damme movie that takes place in Hong Kong to come here?
No. He did films, I think after that, for the most part. I'm not sure. I think the only fiction I enjoyed was, of course, Honorable Schoolboy by John le Carre. I read that. I bought that in the Star Ferry bookshop. Sorry, and I didn't know what it was about, and I bought it and walked outside and sat down and read the whole thing in one reading right there. It was an amazing book. Honorable Schoolboy is about a British spy in Hong Kong. And it's never been made into a movie. I don't know why, but maybe because it would be difficult. Okay, you were in Hong Kong, and where did you live in Hong Kong?
Part of the time I lived in one of the outlying islands.
Wow!
But it wasn't rustic. There was a big property development, like 30 buildings on the island.
Okay.
So
how did you get to work?
There's ferry from the island to Central.
Okay.
Actually, the island is under the Chiang Mai Bridge.
Oh.
So there was a ramp from the bridge down to the island.
Okay.
So that there was bus service as well.
All right.
And then the other place I lived was right in the heart of downtown in Wan Chai. So I lived in two extremes.
All right.
In the heart of downtown and also on an outlying island.
I lived above Wan Chai at a place called Bowen Road. I don't know what they call it today. But you could see the entire city from up there. It's a very expensive area, but I lived for free, fortunately.
Oh, well, that always helps.
But it just, the place mesmerized me. It was just above Wan Chai, and I used to walk down to Wan Chai on a Friday and then go drinking, maybe have a few drinks, and then walk.
Non-alcoholic, of course.
No. And then walk up the stairs all the way back up the mountain. By the time I was just covered in sweat. So it was a good exercise for me. Of
course, with all those changes in Hong Kong in recent years, some people feel it's lost a bit of that edge, that pulse that it had.
Yeah.
I was just there a few weeks ago at the end of 23. I had to attend a wedding of a good friend in Hong Kong. And that was the first time I had been there since COVID struck. So I hadn't been there in 4 years. I have to say, just in my limited experience there for 4 days, I should say I wasn't there for 4 years, and I went for 4 days. It still had that pulse beating. You know, the streets are busy. People are focused on getting stuff done, making money. I stayed in a hotel in the North Point area on Hong Kong Island, and took the MTR into Central every day. Most people, to be realistic, most people are not involved in politics, right? They're just going about their lives. So from that perspective, things are not really changed for people who are just engaged in commerce and doing their jobs. You know, not everybody's an activist.
Yeah, I went there a few years ago and went to my old haunt up on a mountain, and the staircase that went down all the way to Wan Chai was gone. They had removed it. But it still had that jungle-like, it felt like another world. It didn't feel like Hong Kong. You were up in a mountain. It was jungle-like, and then you could hear the city just below you. It wasn't very far away if you just walked straight in space, but if you had to go down the stairs, it was, oh my God, you know.
Oh, one thing that Hong Kong and Taiwan, Taipei specifically, have in common is you're actually not that far from nature. Hong Kong, there's the perception that it's all just tall buildings and Hong Kong Island and Kowloon side all built up, but you're actually not very far from nature and hiking and still within the boundaries of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. And it's just like in Taipei, where you're actually within 40 minutes to an hour, you could be hiking up a mountain.
Well, I used to go up to the New Territories area, and that was mountainous and beautiful. Sure. I was in shock. I didn't realize. I would go up to, what I would do is I would take the train up to Lo Wu Bridge, and then I'd cross it into China. And
they let you in?
Yeah.
Back then, they let you in.
Well, yeah, of course, yeah. As my readers all know, I used to write, or still do, I write spy fiction novels, and nobody buys them. So, but except my wife, who says they're no good.
She's a good customer.
Yeah, regular. Actually, I buy them for her. Say, read this, and she makes noises, and then she says, "Okay, I'll give it to somebody at work or something."
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about living in Taipei is for those who like hiking or cycling, you're really not very far away from those kinds of outdoor activities.
Well, the river here, right through Taipei, has a cycling path, bicycles.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you want to do that on a hot July or August day.
No,
there's no shade.
Not. Oh my gosh, no. But at night, people cycle and they're not afraid. There's no crime, to my knowledge. Yeah, in fact, it's a very safe place, actually.
Yeah, that's one of the great things that Taipei has going for it. It truly is a safe city. Something that comes up all the time, like when you have a friend visiting, you leave something on the table at Starbucks, and you say, "Oh, we could go order," and we go to the bathroom. They're always so surprised that you can walk away.
Yeah,
from stuff. Yeah. In fact, I met a visitor a couple of days ago, and we had to get up from the table to order, and I left my computer right there on the table. It's like, "Is this safe?"
Yeah,
I'm like, "Yeah, it's Taipei.
Totally,
it should be safe."
It's so shocking. Yeah. I see people do that in Starbucks, where they all, a lot of them use the upstairs area where they study. And they sit there for hours, and they leave their laptops, and then they go downstairs and maybe go outside and take a phone call, and it's sitting there. I'm just like, wow, you're crazy.
Yeah, well, it's really unlikely that somebody would attempt to swipe it. So, I think it's very fair to say that Taipei just does not have a lot of that kind of crime.
Well, computers, we just bought my son's 2 laptops. They were about 5 years old, refurbished. They were only about 5,000 NT, which is about, what is that, about
175 US dollars.
Yeah, they're great. You couldn't buy one of those in the U.S. at that price, even 5 years, refurbished.
So they could really destroy it and you won't mind.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And we can take it back, and the guy will fix it. It won't be outrageously expensive. And they have a computer store here. Where is that place where they buy
Guanghua.
Yeah, you buy parts. You can buy components.
Guanghua Market.
Yeah, it's got. Oh my God! You go from floor to floor to floor, and they have booths, small booths, some big, and others. They show you. You want us to build a circuit board for you, and it'll take 40 minutes, and just wait. And you're like, wow, you can't do this in America. Oh my God.
I'll tell you a story about, if I may,
Sure.
about fixing things, and my experience in Singapore, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. In Singapore, if something breaks and you need to call the repairman, Singapore being very small, unfortunately, there's only like 2 service providers because the market's not big enough to support many service providers.
Right.
So either you're going to call A or you're going to call B. And because you only have these 2 choices, there's usually a long wait. There's a backlog, right? So they'll tell you, like, we're going to come in like 5 or 6 days. And you really have no choice because there's only 2 service providers. In Hong Kong, they'll tell you, we'll come 10:30 tomorrow morning. And they always come on time.
Right.
And they probably speak Cantonese, repairmen. But they'll fix it, and they'll charge you a lot of money because everything in Hong Kong is expensive.
Yeah.
Then here in Taiwan, I found if something's leaking, for example, you call them up in the afternoon and you say, my sink is leaking. Can you come over? And first they'll say, oh, well, we're booked. All our appointments are booked. So you get into like this back and forth where you have to like make them feel like it's the end of the world if they don't come today. So you have to say like, oh, but I'm drowning because my faucet, the water is leaking everywhere. Can you please come today? And then they'll feel bad for you. So they'll say, okay, I'll come today. But then they have to get the last word in. So they'll say something like, but I'm going to have to work overtime for you. And then when they'll come, they'll show up, and like the neighbors want to poke their heads in and see like what's broken in the foreigner's apartment. So all the neighbors are sticking their heads in your front door, and the security guard, the Jingwei, is also doing that. And then the repairman will say something really obvious like, your faucet's leaking. I'll say, I know my faucet's leaking. That's why I called you. And then they'll tell you the price to fix it, and it'll be too good to be true. It'll be really cheap.
Yeah.
And you'll say, well, why is it so cheap? And they'll say, well, I'll give you the made in Taiwan part, replacement part. And you'll say, no, but I really want like the original part. I want the Japanese part or the European part. And they'll tell you, you don't want that because it costs more money. And you'll say, but I don't mind. I'd rather have the original part, not something that's made in Taiwan, non-standard. I want the original European part. And then they'll tell you what the truth is, that they don't have it on their truck. They're going to have to go back to the warehouse and make another visit to your place.
Oh,
and they make you feel really guilty about that, because, especially the repairman, because he's not going to make more money.
No.
It's not his company, right? It's the Laoban, it's the boss's company. So the repairman, now he's grouchy because he's going to have to go back to the warehouse and get the European part and come back to your place.
Charge you more.
But he doesn't get to keep that money. It's going to go to his boss.
Right.
So for him, it's just a hassle to have to go back and forth. So that's my experience with repairs in Hong Kong, Singapore, and Taipei. And I think it's a really good summary of living in those 3 places.
Ross, we're getting ready to wrap up, but how would people contact you? And do you have any social media sites? What do they do or talk?
Yeah, I have a few. Thanks for asking. I have a Facebook page, and the name of the page is Ross Feingold, ROSSFEINGOLD .international. So I tend to talk about international events and how they may affect Taiwan. And I have a Twitter account, and the handle is at Ross Feingold, ROSSFEINGOLD, just one word. And for those who speak Mandarin, I still have an account on Chinese social media on the Toutiao platform, and just look up my Chinese name, which is Fang Ge, Fang Zhang de Fang, En Hui de En, Ge Zi de Ge. So I have a lot of, I'm one of the few people who has a lot of back and forth with netizens in China on really
Wow.
current events and political issues. Now, I'll tell you, not everything that I post gets past the censors because there are censors that have to review every post. Although I think a lot of it is automated. It's not really a human, right? So they have these great artificial intelligence applications that they use to review the posts.
Algorithms.
Yeah, so a lot of my posts get rejected. Then you get a message that your proposed post did not pass. So then what I do is I make a screenshot of that and I post that.
Smart,
and then the netizens ask, what did you try to post? And you could try and put it in the comments.
Right.
And then you could try to work your way around it.
A little sneaky.
A little sneaky, and I have a lot of back and forth with those netizens in China because they know I live in Taiwan. So in my profile, it says my location is Taiwan, and they're always calling Taiwan a province of China, and they're always saying we should unify and things like that. A lot of them dislike me because I'm American and I live in Taiwan. So we have some very exciting conversations, but it's all in Mandarin. So that one will only work for people who can read Chinese.
Sure, of course. And we're wrapping it up, and I want to thank Ross for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And we're going to have you back real soon. And I think that's about it, except for anything else you might want to add, Ross.
Well, for people who are listening outside of Taiwan, I hope that listening to our conversation today will inspire them to come visit us in fantastic Formosa.
Absolutely.
And although plane tickets are expensive, from the west coast of the U.S. to Taiwan, it's still reasonably priced.
How much?
Well, if you book far in advance, hopefully you won't spend more than $1,000 if you get it if you're flying from L.A.
That's one way or two? Both ways?
Round trip from L.A. or San Francisco. And there's a new airline called Starlux. So now there's three choices. There's Starlux, EVA, or China Airlines that are all flying international flights from the west coast of the U.S. to Taiwan. I think United, they fly from San Francisco to Taipei as well. So, and it's really easy to get around. You don't have to speak Mandarin to get around.
English signs everywhere.
Yeah,
you can take the train from the airport.
And a lot of people speak enough English to help a tourist.
Oh yeah, they love helping people.
Yeah, so if you're walking around and you're lost, somebody might come up and ask you, "Do you need help?" And hopefully they could point you in the right.
Just look lost, and that's all you need to do.
Just look lost. And as you said earlier in the show, it's relatively speaking, it's inexpensive.
It's
travel
cheap.
around.
Unbelievable.
Travel around Taipei.
Oh my gosh!
And it's great for people who like the outdoors. They could cycle, do a whole circle of Taiwan.
You could, you could definitely go all the way around Taiwan.
Yeah, you might need a little bit longer in Taiwan to do that.
Maybe might be wiser.
So people who are young and healthy could do it by bicycle.
Sure, yeah.
Older folks like us might do it by car.
Some people are surfing now on the East Coast.
Surfing's really popular.
Mountain climbing.
In the winter season, it's I don't know, it might be
chilly.
a bit chilly. But in the summer months, people do come to Taiwan for surfing as well. You don't have to bring your own board. You could rent one.
No, they got them here.
Yeah.
I've spoken to people that do that sort of thing. I'm quite shocked that they love it here, surfing. And now regarding mountain climbing, you have to have a permit normally, and you have to have
some of the parks.
Groups. Yeah, to go with a group because people get lost and disappear in some of the jungles.
And even foreigners have gotten lost. Sometimes that makes the news about a foreigner who's injured or even
missing.
Dies
Oh
because
my gosh!
They went off the trail or they were alone.
They decided to do it themselves with two guys and gone. We don't know what happened to them.
But if foreigners are going to visit Taiwan and they really want to have a good experience, I would say you need more than a week because if you spend like 3 or 4 nights in Taipei, you need to leave time to see either the nature or some of the other cities like Tainan. People love to go to Tainan because it has a lot of temples, a lot of older buildings, great street food. So you need more like 7 to 10 days to really experience Taiwan.
The first 3 days is always jet lag, difficult to sleep.
Yeah, but you still got to get out and see stuff. You can't cower in your hotel room.
All right. Thanks, Ross. thank you very much. And we're going to wrap this up. And thank you. And see you next time from Fantastic Formosa.